One indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody who was able to make it tonight. Obviously, we're running a little bit lean. We have two other people who are waiting to arrive. I only need one of them to establish quorum, so we will start the agenda for the stuff that does not require a vote. It's informational only. Once we have one of those two arrive, we start the process. So at the outset, we'll ask for public comment. Anybody here to speak on any issue? Okay, hearing none. We do not have and have not distributed the May minutes. Those came in today. We're still working on the motion table, so we will not take any action on that until we're able to circulate and deal with the minutes and approval. The correspondence report was distributed earlier.
From MDEMS, we got the program agency REMS co-agreement for 26-27. New York State Department of Health course approvals for multiple courses. Course sponsor application renewals for Erie County Health Department. This one got sent to us. I think they didn't mean to send it to us for Westchester Community College. And then Erie Community College as well. And then one wasn't on there. I got it actually today after I sent it, was a membership application from Erie County from a Frank Ligori. That's all.
Thank you. We'll skip treasurer's report until we have our voting quorum. Medical Advisory Committee, the REMAC met on June 17th. It was actually the busiest REMAC meeting we've seen in probably years. There was a lot of discussion at REMAC about changes to policies and procedures and other information updates on mental health transports, potential use of spit hoods or spit shields by EMS during transport, policy or guidance is going to be attached to the restraint policy that will be forthcoming. A technical advisory group was formed to revisit the responding EMS physician, EMS professional policy outside of established response systems and protocols. There was a discussion about advanced directives and an update on PD dose. They're also launching a capital pilot study, revisiting the regional formulary to allow dual nets to substitute the requirement for just albuterol. So that will be updated as well. Medical direction and the reporting policy was addressed, and there was a conversation about bylaws and compliance. And finally, stat medevacs protocols were approved from 2025 updates. Only item outstanding on that is there was a discussion about any report that the base station physician course was completed. That has not yet been distributed or approved by the REMSCO. It's still sitting. There was also a substantial discussion at the REMAC about hospital offload delays and basically getting the hospital's attention before relieving yourself of a patient returning to service. Although that was a pretty lengthy discussion, ultimately it came back to the patients at the hospital. As long as you provided a report, been reasonable in your actions, there's no expectation that you're going to wait for hours on end. So talk to your agency leadership and or legal counsel for whatever action you think is appropriate. I think that was everything from REMAC. If there's anybody else who was there who had notes that wants to contribute. Cool, lively bunch tonight. State Council. I did not get a report from Mr. Gill. I'm just going to refer to my notes. The State Council met in May. There was a downside to working with digital notes. So State Council met in, yes, it was May, meets again in September. Biggest updates in terms of discussion was at the training and ed committee. There was a lot of discussion about the test being offered by PSI, how that works. A number of course sponsors and medical directors were requesting to take the exam. I don't believe that they have been granted permission to take it yet. I know some have signed up to take refresher classes so that they can see what's on the exam. Just a reminder to everybody who is teaching courses that the National Registry is an acceptable substitute for the New York State exam. So the students can take either. Downside of National Registries, it might take a little bit longer to actually get the state card. And it costs a little bit more money, but then you have the National Registry and that process is done. I think there's gonna be more information on September as far as what's been done with the PSI exam and what the standard is gonna be. From the Finance Committee, they're looking at a lot of the spending information in New York State and working over the summer to try and produce a better budget, obviously advocating for more spend on EMS in the state and how that will apply. They did discuss the Health Management Association report about New York State Medicaid adequacy, as well as the change to allow treatment in place that was retro back into the end of 25, but really came through in, I believe, April. I don't have the date in front of me if anybody remembers exactly when. But if you are billing for service, think about contacting your billing agency to talk about treatment in place, or talk about it internally and sort out how you can best handle that. There's also a robust discussion about functional job descriptions and updating for New York State. Ultimately, I think the state is going to continue to provide that, but there was some interesting objections, including a physician who said, I didn't get a job description to go to medical school. Well, that might be true. Physicians certainly took an MCAT and went through other free coursework, which is not the same for EMTs. So an option to be able to visit those issues and have a functional job description and see what that looks like. Collaborative protocol update, the updates that were approved this year made available through the Department of Health's website. I don't remember if those were a live file, if you have to request them, but if you go to meetings on the website, you can request the updated draft. Those were approved. The rollout will happen in September. The delay for the rollout this year, as opposed to the typical July rollout, is the 250th. I can't pronounce the fancy word for the 250th anniversary, but it's our Independence Day, so they're focusing on that first. And more conversation about the EMTCC sunset, which I think now exists in a technical advisory group and will be returned to the larger scope in September. For legislation and regulations, there was a lot of discussion about the ongoing budget fight. That's obviously since resolved. So we do have a New York State budget for next year with not much impact to EMS in the final package that came out. The Medicare ambulance add-ons were authorized until January of 27 or 28. And I'm just going to rattle these off because they're all in various stages of development, but these are all in the regulatory process to be released for public comment at some point and will be shared. Bless you. The ambulance build standards are reportedly in the final approval of the final draft phase to be released for public comment. The blood administration programs, same state as ambulance build standards. Systems and agency performance standards for both systems and quality committees are still in draft. Those have not been released or disseminated at all. Community paramedicine pending final approval for release for public comment. Quality metrics and the documentation standard is in drafting, and rescue inhalers are in the drafting stage, all from the division. Safety Subcommittee reviewing State Policy 00-13, operation of emergency vehicles. The hazardous response plan, restraint policy, stretcher operations, use of lights and sirens, MCI follow-up, and have now added workplace violence to their list of things they have to do. The Systems Committee continues to address low acuity calls and is involved in a substantial review and revision of the certificate of need, ambulance operating certificate process. That is going to take a lot of time. It's now worked through a couple of subcommittees and is being revisited to hopefully come back as regulation, so we don't have to live under that policy 0606 standard. EMS innovations and research. Talked about the behavioral healthcare crisis stabilization centers that are popping up around the state as alternative destinations. Our REMAC is aware of one who is willing to accept patients on Niagara Street in the city of Buffalo. It requires a little policy revision and a couple of steps with the state, but that is in process. Research subcommittee is doing their pre-hospital care research forum meeting in Manhattan. I believe that was last week. And there's an advisory from the division available on their website about the use of AI and AI disclosures in EMS. And finally, the CMAC, a lot of robust discussion about the collaborative protocols, about updating formularies. That's always an ongoing project. We'll see the rollout in September. There was an update on the process for the state medical, they changed the name, state medical advisor. Let's see, Mr. Linsky or Mr. Shaw, you remember the title?
That's what it is.
State medical advisor. Previously state medical director, but another line reporting sort of to the commissioner, I believe reports to the deputy director of the division of EMS now. So we'll see what that looks like. And then the controlled substances discussion to deal with the DEA regulatory changes that New York State is still bafflingly locked out of. So that was a lot, but that was the notes from May. Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add, or anybody else who was viewed or at CMAC Sumsco? Any points of discussion that are missed?
Is there gonna be any action on our tests, stuff like that? You said there's a lot of discussion on it.
They couldn't answer that. I'm certainly not gonna try, except to say there was a lot of discussion. It is, I don't know why it's a massive friction point with some stuff happening behind the scenes that I don't exactly know what's going on. I know there's a question about how the New York State exam is constructed and administered as compared to the National Registry exam in terms of validation and computer-based testing and other issues. But there's a lot going on there. I don't know what it'll look like, but the pass rates for the New York State exam have not been stellar recently. That's what brought a lot of that to training. That's
From our perspective.
One of the things I was on, the guy was saying, we need at least 2 months worth of data before they can really start taking a look at any of the testing stuff.
Mr. Goyette's here, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you add any meat to that bone?
Yeah, so just to clarify and make sure it's communicated across the point, the same curriculum standards, the same education standards that were enacted in 2021, National Best Education Standards. There is no change in curriculum, there's no change in the test being education standard versus protocol driven. We will never test as protocol driven. It's not what the National Registry bases off, but it's the same thing that we have for our exams as well. Our pass rates did drop. We were sitting above 90% for first pass success rate prior to the major revision of the test bank. Anyone who's an educator knows that's probably not the most valid exam. They gave a first pass success rate above 90%. When we revised it, that biggest, heaviest focus across all four exams, was the shift in medical terminology. So we're moving away from the cut is bleeding to the laceration event, or the hemorrhage, laceration, patella versus kneecap. We went through that. There was no more, I'm proud to say this is a very small right? No more questions regarding discounts. We did a control fine for that one. Got rid of those fines. One or two still in the mix. The biggest thing we're pushing on our educators and course sponsors is the focus on medical terminology, because across the board, every content section, every exam, the students are showing proficiency. We're encouraging every course sponsor, every educator, everyone tutors, shift the focus away from asynchronous, but as an online course, it's not that important. Focus on another class, give a 5-question quiz, whatever it may be, so that medical terminology is up to standards, because across the CFR, EMTA, and paramedic exams, across all content areas, we're seeing deficiencies in medical terminology. One of the final shifts, and this is stealing the phrase, I was going to do it, the chair of the state training and education committee, Don Hudson. His big phrase, and I love using it, is we're not asking anymore what color is the sky. It's a very simplistic question. This we're asking, why is the sky blue? So clinical application knowledge is another big shift. We're asking, what is crepitus, what is a fracture? It's scenario based, or it's think through the question and find the best answer. So it's not over your textbook to memorize a bunch of drug dosage necessarily. It's applying that knowledge to the answer question.
I just don't know why, of all of the terminology, to know as an advanced CMT, why I need to know the medical term for a man who has had a testicle surgically removed.
That is the age, right? See if it's permission.
I'm just saying, like, in terms of all the things, in terms of all the terms that would be important, I think for somebody to know, I feel like that's so exceptionally granular.
It may be considered for anywhere, but that came, that's the federal national U.S. education is a really significant one.
What is the correct answer?
I can't even remember, I just know I got it wrong. But she passed the test.
I know I had issues at Hamburg. There are 90 students who took my class this year. And of those students, so far, 42 kids took the test and half of them have failed it. They've taken it multiple times. Some of my students are honor roll students in my course. They still fail the state exam. So I'm wondering what the issue is with the exam. I know I have a master's degree in education. I know I'm teaching a curriculum. But where are they not making the connection with what I'm teaching in class? And why they're making the connection, they can pass this test. So that's something that we're looking to do. So we've actually last meeting out with the psychometricians, PSI, which will look right to your second point. There was some discussion about the validity of our exam. We validate our exam with psychometricians the same as the National Registry. There was a the state council that did not corrected improvement. Just as a whole trust and verify process, we are happy and transparent to say that we do. It's like a team of psychometricians that are contracted to the PSI that do run all of our statistics for our exams. And that's how we look for those 10 test questions that have been the exams for years. There's always 10 non-score questions every exam. That's how those get validated. So we met with them, we've been meeting with them. If there is more forthcoming, as Brian alluded to, in the next few months, as we get more and more people taking the exam, so we can reach the numbers that we need to get accurate statistics. An exam with 18 people that have taken it, not the most valid statistics we can look at. As we get closer to the 150 to 200 person mark for every question, we can start looking more relevant. I guess I need help then. Because that's what we're looking for as well. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And as we get forward, the biggest suggestion we give course sponsors and educators right now is take those score reports, work with their course sponsor to get the validations for the content area. So every course sponsor get those now via email. Take those part of the Internet of Monies for education regulations is we have to do quality assurance anyway. So we've encouraged course sponsors to incorporate that and work with their educators, their CNSs and programs, be able to look at those numbers and break it down and see where the deficiencies are, and line it back up with the curriculum, the education, and see if there's deficiencies there or what can best serve the students going forward.
So I have a comment, 2 questions. Does anybody else have anything on this? So. Sorry, Sue.
No, Brian and I have already.
So. I guess. My comment is we have, as far as I understand it, more candidates failing than ever before. And are having lower pass rates. That obviously is a result of a change in the exam that is administered. Is there any hope, question 1, of a rollback to the previous exam until the psychometricians and everything else is able to do the evaluation and actually validate the exam content criteria? Or are we going to continue to suffer these high failure rates with everybody who's in the period between change and the next change, basically not being certified as EMTs or advanced EMTs until this is resolved?
So the one, I don't have a solid for the rollback because it's constantly in motion. It's not an option that's off the table, I can say it that much. But that's for much higher level as we get further and further into the analysis. I will say that to break it out a little bit, with the psychometricians, all the items that went on to the final exam, which did happen in the 1 cell motion. All those items were pre-tested and the statistics came back as valid for those questions. So as items hadn't validated, it was just a transition to the scored items on the exam, where we're seeing a large amount of those items transition to the exam and the student pass rates. It's not matching necessarily the 10 non-scores across all the exams necessarily. That's what psychometricians.
I think the other anecdotal evidence that I've heard, I don't know if everybody else has had similar experiences, but students who are not successful on the New York State exam are having tremendous success on the National Registry exam. What's
We have those pockets, looking at the global state numbers, we knock out the ability to break it down by region too much X, the way that I report it in RDT. But looking at the numbers are actually within a point, within a plus or minus 4. For the first time.
the final question, just to go back to Ms. Graham's point, I believe the correct answer for a person who surgically had their testicles removed is eunuch.
No, it's a orchiectomy. It's
See,
the actual medical term for the procedure.
so we're going with the procedure, not the
Yes,
person.
the procedure, that was the specific word. And like I said, I understand the idea of, you know, we need to make sure that people are up on medical terminology. I guess I would just, like I said, of all of the things that could be important. And this is whatever, I'll just say, like, I'm never going to pick up a patient who is going to call his testicle being removed by the correct term. He's always going to say, I had a testicle removed, or I had a bone, or whatever. Not saying that we shouldn't know it, but in the grand scheme of all of the terms that are important for us to know. That's all I'm saying. I guess I would just kind of like to see, in terms of test questions, that they be reflective of the things that we really want to prioritize. It's not.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but every report on an area has a certain amount of items assigned to it, and that is a specific, very specific, very niche. An area, so there has to be. To meet the national bus education standards.
So on, you know, all points of humor and not to make you feel like you had an orchiestimate. But that is well beyond the scope of EMT, advanced EMT and paramedic, and I would encourage none of you to perform that procedure in the field, despite your
That's
temptations.
my other point, is it's not like it's something that we are going to do either.
Excellent.
I don't know, catch me on the right day.
But I feel like there's a chance it might happen, and I just wanted to stress that, you know, it's beyond our scope collectively, so we should.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right, anything else related to state council and the report as you'll provide there? Hearing none, Erie County, we'll look to Mr. Conley, is Mr. Gill's absent?
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Good evening, everybody. Good, how are you? Okay, 7501A legislation that the state is handed down to the counties, Erie County. Was formed a group and we have gone ahead and started. We formulated a survey, 13 questions. Got multiple agencies together. Part went over the survey. There's no state guidance at the time. A week and a half later, the state guidance is coming out. Yes, you can smile. It's about our experience. So with that, going back to the drawing board, between the state guidance, call last week. With that, Director Greenberg, questions are going to be agencies the state understands are going to answer, and they'll deal with that. The county's going to go ahead and add questions as well out of our survey with that to capture some of that data. It needs to be updated. After that, the plan is, because of the size of Erie County with all the agencies involved, to pick it out at a DP&D meeting in July. To all the emergency managers, stay on control, which is a little bit tedious for the size of the county. And then work with their agencies in that, and I'll work with the emergency managers. One of the discussions that took place when Joe Brunner represented the city there is she had brought out that the commercial should have a room survey. And Joe, right? Joe, I think that the states are survey which are both state that as long as you guys are on it. Other than that, fine.
Do you have anything from Western New York Stress, as long as we have you on the spot? Go ahead.
So for Western New York Strat, Bill Priscilla brought up the fact that they had 3 call outs in the second quarter, with 20 people in attendance. So far for the year, 7 call outs with a total of 87. And it's also been working with a new group called the Western New York First Responder Resilience Network, which is a coalition of Erie County Health, Erie County Central Food Services, the Western New York Law Enforcement Helpline, Erie County Sheriff's Department, Erie County Fire Coordinator's Office. They've asked me to be on that team as well, bringing in EMS agencies from across. Other than that, they have a 5-year plan to accomplish the undertaking approximately the next 7 fire departments in Wyoming-Erie County, and not to mention all the EMS agencies. So employee wellness is a big thing, and that's what I got from.
Thank you. Anybody have anything for Erie County or for Western New York Stress? Okay, hearing none. Wyoming County and Wyoming County First Response 14, Mr. Striker.
Just about our county EMS program going well. We are creating another deputy operations coordinator that will start very shortly. Our drop call rate in the county for volunteers is to maintain it at 10%, which is pretty much our average for the year and a half. Staying in force. We already talked about the task force. We are working on our fall training schedule. We have a lot of specialized training, a lot of it's based on wellness level for first responders. We were successful in getting the CARES off grant, so a lot of that is being born out of there as well. As far as first team, we're taking the next level of training there. It's going to be scheduled out, I believe, in September of this year for a peer team. That's going well. And you know, I want to thank Chris, our organization, for shot in the arm for with any information to support our first responders. That's about it.
Anything for Wyoming County or the Wyoming County First Team? Bill, just want to confirm you are working on the county plan as well.
Yes, just since they got the
You have the same content.
Yeah.
If it's possible for you to collaborate with Mr. Conley and bring in Mr. Maxine as well, and whoever else in the systems committee is available.
Sure.
If we as a council can get involved early and maybe, you know, help the process and not repeat things, I think that'd probably be of benefit. Thank you both. We'll jump back up to the top and pair it. Ms. Barber, can we have both the treasurer's report and budget committee?
As a treasurer's report, there have been some of our fiscal year ending invoices that have come in and have been paid. There may be another invoice coming, normally the awards for the dinner. They're about this year's budget. Do you know anything about that?
awards and awards.
Or is that going to be given here?
That, you're still working on the list. We have some bottles for the portal and all that stuff.
I know it's still a ways.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Other than that,
Come out of next year.
other than that, the total expenditures were $12,100.37. Does anyone have any questions?
I think the only questions related to awards, are we still working off of previous donations or do we need to solicit donations again for?
The awards is typically taken out of our,
I meant for the dinner, and everything.
for the dinner.
Yeah.
We are still working off of what money so we got.
Guess we need to solicit donations again for,
We have enough because we already had, or I can ask, I believe AMR has caught up.
that's fine, maybe we can cover that. At the point.
I will.
Motion to accept the treasurer's report. Mr. Ellis, Mr. Tarka, sorry, I'm blanking everybody. Anything related to budget?
None of this.
Okay. Anything for Ms. Margaret? Okay, membership, we have another new application, Erie County still full, there is, I believe, one open seat for Wyoming County. And Ms. Mastrella reported that she is working on an onboarding package, so everybody who's chairing the committee expect Ms. Mastrella to be in contact for information relative to your committee and other information for new members. So as we're onboarding, it's not just here's the email, here's the bylaws, good luck. We'll have a more robust process in place for that. Does anybody have anything for membership you'd like me to report back to Ms. Mastrella? You all gone mute? Can we go back to Mr. Goyette for a minute, because you like talking to him? Okay, from Systems Committee, just a note that Mr. Maxey had attended the meeting that Mr. Conley referenced. That there are future meeting more information to come, and he did send a report relative to the Orchard Park transfer that we have scheduled in new business, so I'll leave that for new business. Does anybody have anything for Systems? Moving right along, turning it out, Mr. Summer.
Now we got all the applications and then we have to discuss under new business, the Catholic Health.
Okay, as previously noted, and then the Catholic Health Corps sponsorship for new business. Anything for turning it out? Okay, bylaws, Ms. Staffel, gave me a report earlier that she is in the process of reviewing the notes and amendments and convening the committee, board report at the next meeting. Anything for bylaws? Excellent. Awards, Mr. Stryker.
Yes, we closed out, we're working, some of the nominations went in the portal, which never made it to appropriate people, the email issue, that's been resolved. I received 18 nominations prior to the deadline. On the portal just very recently received one that written on the proper format, forms and stuff, and 4 more that are, there's no, they put it in the portal, but there's none, no paperwork to go along with that. So I'd like the committee, to whoever's here tonight, to get together for a few minutes afterwards and have a discussion so they can move forward. Get them submitted into the state.
Okay, the awards committee to meet with Mr. Stryker immediately after this meeting, please.
Again, the actual event is again August 26th. We did land in the press. And at that event is going to facilitated, I believe, by Madonna. Very. We've been there before.
You said August 26th,
That is correct. And I think the motion is made to move the meeting.
and that moves, that replaces our September 2nd meeting. What are we convening at 1730, 1700, 1800? What time are we starting on August 26th?
See what we've done in the past.
Yeah, so just pending information on what we're doing for that. Does anybody have anything for awards of Mr. Stryker? Okay, recruitment retention, I haven't seen anything from Mr. Zagoda. Mr. Shaw, do you have any update, or are we gonna do that?
We've got it.
Okay.
Survey results are available. I could share them.
If everybody's okay, I'm gonna leave that for the program agency report. We'll do it all in one package. Thank you. Anything for recruitment retention? All right, New York State Department of Health, Ms. Lewinsky, Mr. Goyette, are you hiding anybody else back there? No new assistants?
No, none with me today. Happy to be back. I don't really have much in the room. For anyone who hasn't heard yet, Vital Signs is in sunny Niagara Falls this year. It is November 10th, 14th. There. And I'm around. If anyone has anything.
Thank you. Anything else for New York State?
The only thing I can advocate, you guys probably have mostly be correct from me. Pilot education projects, there's 5 of them currently posted, policy statement 2508. Please encourage your neighbors. One for everyone. You have any questions on the point person on all those, you feel free to reach out to me. Any EMS questions can always go to EMS.education, that'll help that back up. And that'll get to the team and get it out to the right person as well. Yes, agree with me.
Never forget you.
Okay, so
Anything else for Division of EMS? Okay, executive committee met in June. Largest topic of conversation was just looking at policies and procedures for our council, especially records retention. We're drafting a couple of things that'll come back to this body for approval and looking to incorporate everything along with bylaws into a better governance package that then will go through membership into a better onboarding package and hopefully aid us with some of the challenges that we have. That was most of the conversation. I don't recall there being anything else of substance.
That was
Anything for the executive committee? Okay, moving right along, Mr. Shaw, and UBMD program agency.
We continue our quality assurance work, with compiling and sending, weekly of those transport data. The various stakeholders. We're going to look at electronic PCR submissions, comparing, the state, the region, and looking for charts that might be missing, working with EMS agencies
to rectify that or point them in the right direction for support. We're continuing to work with Coverdell and getting them various data collection regarding hospital notifications, stroke scales, provider impressions, and such. We're still waiting on our execution of the 25-26 program agency contract. So as soon as we get that from the state back, then we can move forward on submitting our 25-26 budget. I was told we would have that like 2 weeks ago, but that hasn't happened, so. We did hold another RENAC preceptor workshop. It was the third one conducting the Wyoming-Erie region. That one was on May 4th at Doyle Host Company #1. We're not planning on doing any more the rest of the year in Wyoming-Erie. We will be doing a couple in the Big Lakes region around the fall area. We had an EMS update and regional training day on June 6th. That was held at Twin City. Special thank you to Twin City for hosting the event. And also like to thank Brian Brunner, Joe Brunner, and Andy Steele for their participation and answering any questions. Topics covered this time around was New York State Western Region EMS system, the CME program, administration of that, electronic PCRs, the overview, troubleshooting, changes in Part 800. And then we had a question and answer time. The goal is that we do this once a year. And we're also talking about maybe offering it in more than one spot. Brian went over REMAC, went over state council, so that's pretty much I have for that.
Actually, Mr. Shaw, I was moving so I could see your presentation. I'm gonna ask you if we can move this to new business. A few members have
Yeah, that's fine.
time constraints and we need to address the quorum issues.
Bill probably has to go a little fire.
Okay, thank you. So we'll actually, entertain a motion to skip right to new business so we can handle our quorum constraints. Mr. Conley, Mr. Malpika on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. So we'll move right to new business and the Orchard Park, transfer of operating authority. As I stated earlier, I received the following from Mr. Axian. I will read it to all of you and we'll go from there. The Systems Committee received an application for a transfer of operating authority from Orchard Park Fire District EMS Incorporated to Orchard Park Fire District. Article 30 allows for a transfer of authority under certain circumstances, such as a transfer of all or substantially all of the assets of a corporation to a new owner, which would be the case here. The council is required under Article 30 to determine if the proposed new operator is competent and fit to operate the service. The application was reviewed and determined to be complete on May 6, 2026, and was sent that day to the Bureau of EMS, or actually Division of EMS, via the Health Commerce System, requesting the division to conduct the fitness and competency review on behalf of our council. Thereafter, the Division of EMS advised me, so Chairman Bronner, that the division completed the fitness and competency review, and there is no bar for fitness and competency of the new owner, Orchard Park Fire District. I offer a copy of the letter dated today, Wednesday, July 1st, 2026, from the Division of EMS as Exhibit A, and ask it is included in the record of the transcript of tonight. On this basis, the committee hereby recommends, and I so move, that the council determine the proposed new owner, Orchard Park Fire District, based on the Division of EMS's fitness and competency review, is competent and fit to operate the service, and as a result, therefore, approve the transfer of operating authority. So that comes as a motion, not a seconded motion. So we will need a second. Mr. Conley, and on the question. Comments, statements, observations, concerns?
Sounds pretty cut dry.
Okay,
That's not, but
it's roll call vote by statute, so I'll ask Mr. Zimmer to call the roll.
Barber,
Yes.
Brian Brunner,
Yes.
Joe Brunner,
yes.
Eric Conley,
Yes.
Ellis. Yes. Graham,
Yes.
Hyde,
Yes.
Malpika,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Striker,
Yes.
Stetzel,
Yes.
Crystal Turco,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
Zemrak. Yes. Fourteen yeses, 0 no's.
14 in favor, the motion unanimously carries and is approved. We'll send that report to the state probably tomorrow. I'll get an email out tonight for our council to send it. Should be all set. That closes that matter. Second issue we need to address, that will require a roll call vote, is the Catholic Health Systems Core Sponsor application that was distributed by email earlier this week, and I will, before we get to anything, I will ask Ms. Rowles or Ms. Olson to offer any comments or anything that you want about the application. We did not address during public comment, so if you want to make any comment.
Sure. So as everyone in the room knows, Catholic Health System employs the EMS liaison team that includes CME education, which almost everybody in this room has attended at least some form of our CME. While I'm teaching classes, we're pretty regularly asked, why don't you guys teach UNT classes? Originally, we didn't really look into it. We didn't have a good place to hold it. Didn't really have the right team in place to do it either. With the closure of the OR at Mount St. Mary's in Lewiston, we now actually have the perfect place to host it, where not only do we have a conference room that we can transition to a classroom, but the leadership there allowed us to transition those ORs into simulation rooms. So we actually now have the ability to teach them to truly run a call from dispatch through to the scene, your assessment, your transport decision. And then because we also have the mobile simulation unit that is in conjunction with the County EMS, we can actually put them in an ambulance, drive them around, they come back. We have areas set up as ER rooms, so they can also then practice their offload to the ER staff. So it's more of kind of what Brian's alluding to, of learning them or teaching them to learn to apply it instead of just read it in a book. And as you guys all know, when you're teaching it, it's kind of, here's your patient who's perfectly fine. You take their blood pressure and then say, oh, but it's actually 60/40 or whatnot. Well, we just have more of an ability to kind of offer an advanced class. And the request is there. We hear it pretty regularly. So at this point, we decided we have the right team and we have the opportunity to do it. And we have a great place to do it in all areas.
Thank you. So the package was circulated earlier. We are going to discuss this on the floor because the training act committee has not yet met on it and actually have a second motion. So I'll open the floor for first a motion. Remember, motions are in the affirmative, so it would be a motion to either one, approve the core sponsorship with our recommendation without reservation. Two, provide approval is recommended with a contingency that we would then have to note below our recommendation. Or three, it will be approval is not recommended for the reasons stated below, but the motion still has to be for approval. If the motion does not pass, then we'll have to see our reasons. So the motion would need to be in the affirmative. If anybody wants to make a motion to approve the recommendation of the core sponsorship application.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Ms. Graham makes the motion, looking for a second.
Second.
Second from Ms. Stetzel. Now we can talk about it. So on the question, comments, thoughts, concerns, anything? Record is open.
Did you talk to any of the other course sponsors in this area to determine if their classes are being filled, are they having struggles? We already have course sponsors and, you know, have you had any conversations with them regarding this?
So we talked to a number of our sponsors, both in Niagara and Erie County. The conversation that we've had with Erie County is, you know, obviously there's a surplus of classes in Erie County, so the need would be assessed kind of each semester. There is a need in Niagara County. We do see some of the classes being canceled in Niagara County, but I think a lot of that is a recruitment question. You know, we kind of always recruit the same place. We put it on Facebook and we send it out to the fire departments. But one of the things that we have access to in Catholic Health is the entire recruiting department. And they go to high school job fairs, adult job fairs, we were just recently in the river workshop, there were thousands of high school kids come through and they constantly come to our table and say, we'd love to get into EMS, but we don't know how. You know, and at our table, Brian will talk to this, we hand out the academy flyers for Twin City and for AMR. You know, but some of these kids want to do it volunteer, not commercially, so, you know, recruiting is a huge piece of how we bring people in, and, you know, Mike's gonna do this presentation a little bit. I think that's a big piece of why you're seeing some of the classes being canceled in certain areas, because there's just not, I don't wanna say there's not enough. We've seen an online cancer program, which we have access to an entire department that doesn't really.
Mr. Malvika.
I saw the job posting, for the CICs, you had EMT CICs there, but you prefer EMT to paramedic CIC, you have a interest in moving up here to the ALS for sponsorship?
We don't have any job postings.
Well, in
There
the
is a-
application.
Oh, an application?
Yeah.
So the reason that we did that is because we're going to also use those for some of our CME events. So it makes it easier if I'm coming out to an agency or paramedical agency than to say, I can only use you for this, or I can only use you for that. We're gonna kind of hybrid a little bit. So at this point, I don't have any intention to move up any levels of care. I think, you know, getting new people into EMS is the important piece right now. But that's why they're listed like that, is because we're gonna hybrid and use them for the CME events too.
So, will having that for sponsorship, change or inhibit any outreach, EMS education you're doing?
No, because we've already given permission, should we be granted the course sponsorship, that we will be able to hire additional instructors, which is why we want to do the hybrid. So, you know, maybe sometimes Amanda and Taylor are teaching the EMT class and I send the other instructors out. Or I send the new instructors to the EMT class, because we don't want to impact any of the CME that we do, because we're so widespread on that, and people seem to rely on that for a lot of their training and their CME requirements.
Yep.
So we do not want to negatively impact that, and so I would give her permission to hire additional instructors. Sure.
Should the people provide, should the need arise for the transport to that location identified similar to Monterey?
So I think the police part is, each one of our hospitals have very large conference rooms that we can transition into the classroom. Most of them also can be separated into 2, 3, you know, some of the campuses have 4 conference rooms. So we can accommodate that. But again, that for Erie County classes, we need to assess each semester because there are so many classes in it.
That's right.
We've been in Niagara County, what is Big Lake's response to this? Have they?
Yep, so Big Lake's already voted to support the course sponsorship.
Comments, discussion does not have to be just questions. We have an obligation to discuss this as a council and provide our recommendation.
This is a recommendation of the state and the state.
Correct.
State.
It is important to note, so everybody knows, there's no geographic limitation for core sponsors. So once, if any entity, all entities that are core sponsors or seek to become core sponsors are core sponsors, they can provide courses anywhere in the state. So that's, you know, for the question about Erie County and everything else, subject to whatever limitations the core sponsor has. There's no other limitation on their ability to provide a course.
There's only so many, like, well, you got how many course sponsorships in the area, ECC, Remar, Erie County, and trip, where do you want that?
There's already 10 Wyoming.
Wyoming. Okay.
It shall be.
But how many other instructors will go take to those places where they're already teaching other agencies?
So most of the instructors work at multiple course sponsors. At one point, I was working at 3 course sponsors, while working full-time for commercially EMS agency. But at the same time, we want to try to grow a lot of our instructors too, which is why we mimic sort of what Erie County does with the PWI instructor. So we can grow more instructors. We need more instructors, just like we need more EMS providers. So, you know, we'd like that to be a place where, yes, we need some seasoned instructors as well. But, you know, like anything else, we're short resources, so let's collaborate and share the resources and grow good instructors.
So you're instructed to be a 13 basis.
Yes.
Mr. Hyde, I thought, sorry, your hand.
Yeah, the only other discussion I would have, more of a discussion for the group. Being an instructor at Ed Trip, you know, we have canceled classes because of lack of enrollment. There's just not a lot out there. Granted, advertising public classes is not great. But I can tell you what little classes we run, if all those students go over to CHS and Trip don't have any programs, there just won't be students to be in programs at Trip. You know, that won't exist. So you're gonna create one to eliminate another. And granted, it might be advertising, I get it, but there's not that many students out there. And we regularly cancel classes, and we regularly have classes of 10 or 12 students. So
That's right.
Do you look to partner with like an trip or something like that? But one of my, the second question is that, well, I understand Mount St. it's up in the border, right? It's still even for Suffolk County, that's a thing that it would difference. Whereas if people aren't able to make that trip, which is more central, or even the public safety, are they going to go the extra distance to have outlook? Maybe is there opportunity for partnering with or sponsored or authority? Looks like when it's that you, then he's
I'm sorry, Ms. White.
I'm sorry.
Can't pick you up all the way
Yeah,
here.
Sponsorship back in the day, so. Back in the day, so. And what we did talk about partnering. You know, I'll tell you that part of that is when you two partner, you're not under restriction of running the program. It's sort of exactly if they want to run, if they are the sponsor, which then sort of restrains us from being able to offer for that enhanced, you know, courses that we want to offer in, you know, having the sim lab and being able to offer all that. You know, so, but to Amanda's point, you know, we did have an NU and a trip at one point, and you did see classes being held regularly at both. And in talking to people within Niagara County, they would travel to Mount St. Mary's. You know, and our goal is not to hold another core sponsors, but I understand that's going to happen. I would actually much rather see the core sponsors work together to try to recruit from both programs. You know, we or should be, the point is not to close one, just replace it with another. The point is to try to get enough students coming with both that we're regularly putting into the system. If you guys know, you know, a lot of these guys don't last more than a year or two when they're that many in hospital without providers.
So did you explain then to that point, maybe why you think your program or your co-sponsor would be different than what's? Or like why you would overcome that they are in out in a year?
Well, so the retention piece of it is not ours, it's the recruitment in piece that's ours. And again, I have an entire system-wide department, that's literally what these people do, and that's what they're trained to do, is to recruit. You know, no different than trying to get people into nursing school and RT and into nurse aid. You know, they can do this for the EMT side as well. It's high school fairs, you know, job fairs to get these people into EMS. So the retention piece is not what we're talking about, it's the recruitment piece. But if they're gonna leave in 2 years, we need to constantly be putting back into the system to replace, you know, because I mean, when you and I first started, you have 2 left, that was fine, 4 more into the door, that's not the case. But we need to keep putting into the system. I'd love to see retention become a thing. I'd love to see more 20 and 30-year providers. That's just not what we're doing right now.
So is there an opportunity, because you do have an entire department that can recruit, for you to send overflow?
Yes.
To the other sponsor?
Yeah. And I think that would be the best way to do it. Everybody works together to try to fill all the classes instead of, you know, 30 people come to Mount St. Mary's or 30 people go to the tower.
Right.
I mean, right now, summer class for Erie County is like almost 80 students. I'm helping teach it. It's crazy to that. You know, would it not be easier to express those out to all of the core sponsors? Right. They have the classes, right? Which in the summer it's tough. I get it. That's a different setting, but it was just an example.
I'm not familiar with Erie County that much, like distance wise, the distance between like St. Mary's.
So from N trip to St. Mary's, you're talking about another. But from the other side of the county, so like I live on the other side of the county,
it takes me almost 40 minutes to get from where I live to Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah. So I'm just, I think to the point of, you know, especially for those who are interested in volunteering, maybe not necessarily going to one of the paid services. You know, when we talk about the challenges of recruitment and retention, you gotta take a look at the time commitment involved in going to these classes, and part of the time commitment is the drive time. You know, like I'm lucky I've got a 15-minute drive when I'm doing this stuff, but we had someone in our advanced class who's driving all the way down to Niagara Valley. Yeah, so like, God bless them for making that commitment, but, you know, let's be mindful, people are giving up entire evenings 2 times a week and all that, so.
Well, part of it too, I think the core sponsors should work together to schedule out the classes, like it wouldn't make sense if we were approved to have our class on Tuesday, Thursday, then Trip's also doing a class on Tuesday, Thursday. Some people need a Monday, Wednesday class, some people need a Tuesday, Thursday, maybe that's why that person goes from Margaret County to Wyoming County.
Yeah.
Because they needed that specific schedule.
Yeah.
So I think that makes more sense too, I think we just need to be more collaboration.
Yeah.
Mr. Ellis?
Your interest currently is to run night program, not like an academy style, with these be cutting out employees. That
No, so they will not be capital employees. This will be like they take a class in Erie County. They choose to take the class. They would not be capital employees. We're not mimicking the academy style.
And then from a recruitment standpoint, like a recruitment, actual physical recruiter, I can imagine that the system is focused heavily on nursing, so there's an appetite to focus also on EMS. I'm happy to predict the bubble. How do they focus on?
Everything's.
So, I mean, I can focus, yeah, but I mean.
Yeah.
if you want.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, yes, I will insert as I'm now no longer influencing that discussion. My only concern is I think we have an abundance of core sponsors and a shortage of interested candidates, and I don't think that other core sponsors are gonna help. Wyoming County did because of what we needed, so. Again, not in Erie or Wyoming, we're getting adjacent region, so. Bear in mind that our recommendation here is gonna have how much weight, Mr. Goyette?
That percentage, which is part of the total package to consider. There'll be cases where originally recommended against, not approved, and vice versa.
So, to Ms. Rawls' point, I think the collaboration idea is great. There's lots of core sponsors and opportunity to do stuff. Bringing that together will probably be awesome. Nobody has anything else, we'll call the vote. Okay. Mr. Semrek, would you call the roll, please?
Barber. Brad Runner,
I abstain.
Bill Bronner.
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Ellis.
Ellis, yes.
I didn't hear you.
Ellis, yes.
He said yes. He repeated his last name.
Yes.
It's a sorry day when I can hear.
You're like my high school kids, you're mumbling. Graham,
Yes.
Hyde,
No.
Lapika,
No.
Shaw.
No.
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 Striker,
Yeah.
Stetzel,
Yes.
Crystal Turco,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
Summer, no.
Nine in favor, 4 opposed, 1 abstention. The motion does not carry. Entertain any other motion with respect to the application. Do we provide a qualified recommendation? Do we provide a no recommendation? And if so, we need a reason for the no recommendation.
I think, like you said, we have enough, we have a lot of sponsors in our area. And I know ECC, they're minimally running classes, so I think in Niagara County, where you want to, Mount St. Mary's is phenomenal, what you want to do that in, but in Erie County, we have I think a plethora for sponsors, you know.
So is that a qualified recommendation that we recognize there may be a need in Niagara County, but that we don't perceive one in our region?
I like that.
Yeah, I think that.
Reasonable.
Okay, so entertain, Mr. Zemrak makes a motion, qualified motion, a recommendation that while we don't perceive a need for additional core sponsor in Wyoming-Erie, we certainly recognize it may exist and defer to the expertise of the Big Lakes Council and that endorsement. Second from Mr. Strider. On the question. Hearing none, call the roll again.
Barber,
Yes.
Brian Bronner,
Yes.
Joe Bronner.
Yes.
Conley.
Yeah.
Ellis.
Ellis, yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Pika.
Yes.
Shaw. Stryker.
Yes.
Stutzel.
Yes.
Crystal Tucker.
Yes.
Robert.
Yes.
Zemrak. Yes.
That one was unanimous, so we will provide the recommendation that we agree there's likely Big Lakes endorsement, and we just don't have a need in our region. I'll send it back to you, I don't know if you would let it. Excellent. That resolves the second issue that we need a quorum for. Anything else for new business? Okay, going back to old business, Mr. Shaw, you want to finish the recruitment and retention report?
So, I'm hoping maybe I'm sorry, I can see his visuals. All right, so we sent out surveys to EMS agencies and EMS providers. And these are going to be the results of those surveys. This is our first initial step. The recruitment retention money that's been set aside. We need to get this regional analysis done and move on from there. All right, so in a general overview, Wyoming-Erie region suffers many of the same workforce shortages and challenges seen across all over New York State and all over the nation. Several issues are particularly acute because of the mix of urban, suburban, and like in Wyoming County, very rural. So the big question is, what can we do to help? So this task that we had here was a regional analysis of the EMS recruitment retention landscape within the Wyoming-Erie region. We did this using recruitment retention surveys. We looked at the workforce shortage update by the state. We looked at regional and county census information, and I also looked at call volume information. So basically, we came down to, after looking at everything as a whole, recruitment challenges. One, of course, we all know that there's workforce shortages, volunteer shortages, a decline in participation. Low compensation has always come up, although I think in our area, our compensations is much, much better than what it used to be. And educational barriers. The retention challenges that came out, the biggest one was burnout, mental health and stress, and limited advancement, opportunities. Oh, why does this say Big Lakes? I didn't change that. Population of Wyoming-Erie, Erie County. This is from 2025, the estimated census from 2025. Erie County, 946,741. That's of the people that actually live in Erie County, not, the visitors that come in. Wyoming County, 39,741, with a regional total of 986,482. So within our Wyoming-Erie region, there are 114 EMS agencies. That's a mix between BLSFRs, ALSFRs, and 68 certified ambulance agencies. So then I broke down levels of care. So at the CFR level, we have 82 CFRs in Erie, Wyoming, EMTs 2435, AEMTs 196. There are 4 CCs still certified in Erie County. And then paramedic 478. So the total EMS providers actually living in the Wyoming-Erie region, 3,195. Now, of those, I went through the portal and I looked, and there are a few hundred in the region that are not actively participating in EMS, either through the workforce or volunteering, and they are currently still certified. So my big question there is why? Why don't we have them? Why aren't we retaining these people? So then I looked at call volume. So in 2025, there was 107,187 total EMS charts generated. Of those, 99,000 were transports. Okay, so that includes all transfers, that includes, the take homes, all that stuff. So that's an average of 274 transports per day and about 11 transports per hour. So that's a lot of call volume. So when we look at our total EMS providers and you look at that at the population, it's 0.03% of our population provides EMS. And that's a severely low number, as we all would kind of put our brains to. So our biggest problem within our counties, there's a limited pool of EMS providers. Not all of our EMS providers living in the region, again, don't actually perform EMS in our region. So where do we go from here? We did the surveys. So I'll start out with the agency results. Out of 114 agencies offering EMS services in Wyoming-Erie, we had 11 responses. This survey was pushed out multiple times. And we had 11 responses, but we got to go with what we got. So of those agency responses, we had 4 career agencies and 7 volunteer agencies. 2 of those municipal EMS agencies, 2 volunteer municipal fire departments, 5 volunteer fire departments, and 2 EMS agency corporations or incorporated. Along with that, there were 5 paramedic level services that responded and 6 EMT level services responded. So that gave us kind of a bigger mix on the services rendered. So we asked, does your current staff meet your agency needs? 5 out of those 11 responses said no. 6 out of those said yes. And I found that awkward. So there are 6 agencies there that are saying, hey, we have the staffing that we need. To the left side there in that one graph, it's basically talks about the staffing levels, anywhere between 11 to 25 EMS providers up to more than 100 EMS providers. So we asked about call data and how many calls an agency takes. So obviously here on the far left, there were 3 agencies that took, you know, either 1,000 to 5,000 or maybe even more. And we asked also how the agency figures staffing by call volume. So, you know, did they use metrics in order to figure out staffing needs? You know, based on, you know, days of the week or, you know, peak times. There are 7 agencies that responded that really don't look at the metrics. They don't look at their call volume. They don't look at really when they're the busiest. So we also asked EMS agencies if they sponsor any additional EMS courses. And that was a pretty good mix. Some do help sponsor paramedic programs, some advanced EMT programs, but 28% of them said none at all. They won't help out. They won't help out. So above that, we said, well, does your EMS agency pay for any other CME opportunities such as vital signs or other EMS focused courses or seminars? And 9 out of 11 said, yes, they do. 2 of them said, no, they won't pay for it. So then we got a little bit more into recruiting and said, you know, how difficult is it to recruit new EMS providers? And this is, you know, again, straight to the EMS agency leadership. And most of it was extremely difficult. So the blue shade in that little circle at the bottom, that was 5 out of 11. So then we asked, what type of channel did they use to recruit? And the biggest one that we saw was personal networks. Basically, you know, somebody told their family member, hey, you know, why don't you take an EMS course? Or it wasn't more, you know, billboards and paper material. It was actually conversations and networking with family and friends. So we asked what they thought was the biggest barriers to recruiting. The first most popular answer is limited population base. Another one was cost and length of training programs. And then, you know, the responses kind of went down from there. Poor compensation and lack of benefits, we'll see a little bit later on in the presentation, but it really wasn't a popular answer. Again, I think our system around here, we've gotten very, very aggressive with compensation to EMS. Other general comments that was made was lack of recognition as an essential service, which there has been, you know, a lot of action really pushing towards making EMS essential. So hopefully that comes down the pike at some point. Then we asked, in your opinion, what changes would you like to see in EMS to improve recruiting? And there was a variety of feedback. Some of it, as I was looking at it, it's like, man, I can't put that on the slide presentation. But recruitment by demographic or availability of population bases, stipends for volunteers that came from some of the volunteer agencies, better pay and benefits. I think there was one person that said that, and more officer and leadership programs. One of the biggest things that kept coming up too was time commitments. You know, we spend a lot of time in EMS, you know, running calls, going on calls, or taking call after call. Then we asked agencies, how difficult is it to retain EMS providers? And most of them said it was somewhat difficult to retain EMS providers. So we dug in a little deeper. We asked about those who said it was, they have successful programs in retention. Why? What makes your program so successful? So it was a variety of equipment, you know, having the greatest up-to-date equipment, not using things that are, you know, kind of really outdated. Really instilling the sense of duty. Treatment of the staff, treating staff very well, competitive pay. Training, ongoing training that makes sense, making sure training is being followed through. And instilling that commitment, from day one. And then we asked why you feel EMS providers leave the EMS industry. And again, we're still on the agencies. One of those, the most popular answer in the rankings was high workload and poor work-life balance, followed by burnout or stress. Compensation and benefits came in third. Other careers outside of EMS, leadership or management issues, lack of advancement, and I don't know why, burdensome recertification process. I think our recertification process is pretty easy. But those are the answers. Then we asked about the pilot programs by the state and if agencies were using them. And we had a few agencies, 5 responses said they knew nothing about them. And I have a big problem with that because we have talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and talked about it.
At multiple.
So, yeah,
You know, I
So-
mean, there's no.
getting that out there, getting out that, you know, but again, you know, 117 agencies, 3,100 EMS providers, or 114 agencies, you know, that's a lot of talking. So then we went on to the EMS provider survey, and out of that total number of EMS providers, we only got 33 responses. Of those EMS providers that responded, 16 were volunteer, 4 were career, and 13 were involved both in volunteer and career. So we asked the individual EMS providers how they heard about EMS. And the most popular answer was family and friends, legacy. That coincides with the agency where, hey, you know, word of mouth is what really makes it happen, okay? So then we asked, what is your primary motivation for becoming an EMS provider? Yeah, you might have heard about it, but what really made you pull the trigger and decide to go ahead and do it? And the number one answer there was passion for helping people. There was one answer that was, well, you know, scheduling. After that, we asked providers how difficult do they think it is for their EMS agency to recruit EMS providers. And the number one answer there was somewhat difficult. So our EMS providers on the ground also understand that recruitment is a huge, huge challenge. So from my standpoint is how do we get them involved to continue spreading that word of mouth and the value of becoming an EMS provider. So does your EMS agency provide any incentives when recruiting EMS providers? When we're talking about incentives, it could be LoSAP and the volunteers that are with fire agencies. It could be bonus pay for our commercial agencies, gym memberships, whatever. 26 responses said no, 7 said yes. So as a provider, please rank what you feel are the biggest barriers to recruiting. Or work-life balance. And I think personally, I think this ties into the other one, but sometimes we bring that upon ourselves as well. But that was the number one answer. 2 is poor compensation, but it corrects itself later. 3, cost and length of training programs, conflicts with other employment or commitments. Number 5, perception that EMS is not a viable career, and the accessibility of training. When we listed this out as accessibility of training, actually in parentheses, it says distance to travel to training and stuff like that. So when we ask EMS providers about change in EMS, for some reason, we're back to pay and fringe. 2 was time commitments, 3, less mandates, 4, improving community relations, and 5, public education when it comes to EMS. And I think that's important too, because we don't, one of the things that we talked about in some of my discussions was, well, fire departments, you've got that, is there a fire in you? And it's a campaign that goes on every year. Everybody knows that's what's gonna go on year after year after year. We really don't have anything like that in EMS. So it would be great to have something like that. So then we got into retention with our EMS providers and asked how difficult it was in their eyes. How difficult do you think it is for us to retain? And the number one answer was somewhat difficult. There was one answer that said extremely easy. But those that said they thought it was easier for their agency to retain staff, they said it was because it was a tight, friendly organization with great communication, great leadership. Training is interesting and positive, and we make people feel valued and motivated. When asked about changes in EMS providers, they said they'd like to see the ability to provide more incentives, more leadership training, more recognition, more support for mental health. Increase in pay, again, dropped back down on the list. And physical and nutritional wellness programs. And more providers, along with simplifying the electronic PCR process and concentrate more on the patient. So those were the results of the survey. Our next steps from here is we formulate a plan of action, choosing tasks that can be measured by metrics. Those metrics need to be evaluated on a quarterly basis, and that gets all compiled into a program agency report to the state. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Okay.
So obviously, the next steps from the committee, I think that for the room, for everybody who's still awake, you turn the lights out, it's your fault. The largest issue, this reflects the apathy in terms of response. I think that it could also note that people are sick of being surveyed. And there's a lot of noise on the channel. This is consistent with national surveys. This is consistent with state surveys. People are just over this. So we need another way to engage EMS providers. And I think that's what the recruitment retention answer is. But I think it's also, let's take this back to the state and say, we need the money so we can engage people in a way that's meaningful and interesting and not death by survey. Entertain any other comments, or you could choose to participate in the recruitment and retention committee. Mr. Stryker.
Comment, again, common message here that we've been working on globally across the state, through the different, the task force the government put out, as well as, survey, the reporters across the state surveying, and good response out of it. And now out of this one here is the need for some type of stipend compensation for first responders. This is focused directly on the EMS side of the house. My whole business, I'm gonna report on it anyways, but there's been initiatives done on operating to get compensation of what we're going. Still be controlled by the AHJ local authority having jurisdiction, stuff like that. Unfortunately, it fell short this session, the tail end, for a couple of reasons. One was political, and one was the association. Wasn't like the idea for some reason. But that effort is going to continue, and that's the common terminology here, is the generations we're dealing with now, it's not their time to do it, it's not fun to do it, but they want something in their hand at the end of the day. So I think that's a huge focus point that we need to drive home and work on for the next legislative session.
So again, Mr. Stricker reminds everybody to get involved with your advocacy groups, FASNY, state chiefs, NYSFERA.
I would recommend that.
Again, I'm saying all of the advocacy groups, I'm not,
They're the problem.
I'm not positioning in favor or opposed to any one of them. I'm saying pick an advocacy group and go with it. So thank you for that. Mr. Shaw, if I can ask you to distribute that after you correct the Big Lakes part for
Yes.
everybody. And also please go back and look at the PCR data and make sure that's not Big Lakes, because I can think of one agency that's doing more volume than the numbers you have there by themselves. So, two agencies are doing way more than the numbers that you had there, and that's before we get to the other 112 that are in the two counties.
And those two agencies take most of the calls. So
It's still way more than that number, so that might reflect a data issue as well, understanding the constraints there, so. Anything else for the recruitment and retention presentation or program agency? All right, who's gonna be the gunner? Need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Ellis? This is Liz Targa, got her hand up before Ms. Stetzel. We stand adjourned for the executive committee. We'll see you in August. For everybody else, see you in August.
Board committee.
Boards committee, go meet Mr. Stryker, please.